Welcome back to the secret signing tunnel where I'm joined once again by the great Moley. How are you, mate?
Yeah, doing well, Diz. Coming up to Christmas, things are slowing down a little bit, but there's still plenty of stuff to be done in rugby league. Still plenty of players looking for clubs. So be interesting to see what happens next few weeks.
Plenty of signings, plenty of rumours. Speaking of which, this is the show where the rumours don't go away and the player movements never end. Now, we're going to start with some viewer questions, Molly. We've got a fair few to get through this week. Interesting one from Kelly. Are the Warriors a chance to sign Leo Thompson? That's sort of come a little bit out of left field. I know he's a Kiwi, but what's your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think him being a Kiwi, you can never discount it. But the way I see it, I think he's very close to a done deal at the Doggies. Certainly not signed yet, but they've been talking in earnest. There's plenty of other clubs after him. I think it's fair to say he's the number one player on the market at the moment, certainly the number one forward. So Doggies favourites, Warriors maybe a 10% chance.
A 10% chance. We'll see. We'll see because the Raiders, I know, the other interested party too. So let's see what happens there. Now, will the Knights sign Jonah Pezzett? This is from Ian Pitty. Now, I know he's been offered reportedly a deal, 2.5 million over 4 years. If I'm Jonah Pezzett, I'm taking that with both hands and running.
Yeah, well, he's a player in demand, a class outside back. He can play just about anywhere in the back line. I think they're the favourites, and at that sort of money, he'd be crazy not to go because he's. I can guarantee you, I don't know what he's on at the Storm, but it's not that sort of dosh.
Absolutely. A great young player. Unfortunately, had that ACL injury. But if, well, I tell you what, if the Knights can do with a half, let's put it that way. Another one. They need to get rid of some of the ones they've currently got though. Otherwise, they're gonna have about eight halves and none of them can play. But yeah, look, if I'm Jonah Pezzett and I'm the Knights, I'd be trying to wrap that one up pretty quickly. He's come out of a good system, but as you say, Moley, people that played for the Storm and go somewhere else tend to go down the gurgler.
Yes, that's the risk you take when you sign a Stormer.
Now, Jock Madden, obviously as a result of Ben Hunt signing for the Broncos, has been allowed to negotiate. Have you heard any clubs interested in Jock Madden?
No, but I feel for poor Jock. He just signed not that long ago. He's got another 2 years to go. I just spoke to his manager 5 minutes ago, actually, and he's left with a bit of a dilemma. He might have to look to England, which a fair few halves have done, and done an apprenticeship over there and come back better players, or he might be able to pick up an NRL club. But at this stage, no nibbles. It's all just happened, of course, the last few days with Ben Hunt going there and Madden being told he can look around. So it's one we'll keep our eyes on.
And of course, the big news, Molly, Reece Robson to the Chooks for 4 years. We've dropped this info about a month ago now. So, yeah, good to see that one came off for the battlers out there. Now, that is a massive signing for the Chooks, and I feel like there's plenty more to come.
It is. It's a big scoop for you, Diz. It was well done. It came right out of left field, and I certainly jumped on it. And it just shows we all knew Brandon Smith was on the way out. The Roosters, the way they do business, they don't get rid of a player unless they've got someone ready to take his place. And
Yeah.
obviously, this is what they've done. Robson in, Brandon Smith out, and which leads us to the next question: where's Brandon Smith going to
Where's he
go?
going?
And,
Yeah,
well,
jeez.
few clubs interested in him, and again, he's a Kiwi. So
Apparently, there's two clubs. Do you have any goss on who those two clubs are?
no, I don't. But it wouldn't surprise me if one was the Eels. Yeah, just
They desperately need a forward. I'm going to throw my hat in the ring and say the Titans. They're on the hunt for at least a hooker as well. So watch this space. We'll see.
yes, it's a good tip. Titans have got a bit of cash too, so could be.
Well, we'll see. We will see. Now, speaking of the Roosters, funny question actually from one of our top fans, Joshua McIntosh. Do the Roosters actually have a youth team? They seem to just buy and poach the best players from all the other clubs.
Yeah, well, look, this I grew up in the East, and the problem is, particularly in this modern era where no one can afford to buy houses, there's very few junior clubs in the East, and as a consequence, very few players. It's slim pickings. You got to feel for the Roosters when you compare them to the likes of the Panthers, who have juniors coming out of there, you know what. So yeah, it's a fair question, but the demographics is a lot of old people in the eastern suburbs, but that's not much good to the Roosters. Not too many kids. That's just a fact of life.
So just on that, given obviously geographic factors and some economic circumstances preventing maybe some catchment not being as prevalent in certain areas, do you think a draft system would work like the AFL?
I would love a draft. I think it'd be the best thing for the NRL. Like, it's been bad for the game. Let's face it, to have the Tigers having the wooden spoon 3 years in a row, and hopefully the Tigers will pick up next year. But they've had to do it the hard way by spending overs. Now, if they could have picked, the first one or two players on the market, it would have been great. But we all know what happened with the draft. Back in the 90s. It lasted about 5 minutes, got challenged in court and thrown out. So, we'll have to find a way to do it. There's obviously a way to do it because the AFL do it. And I just think it makes it exciting. And you look at the NFL, the draft is such a big part of their game. It's massive, and they make it a whole event. It's like the Dally M ceremony, the NFL draft.
They
Televised.
do it well. The MLB draft, yeah, the Americans do it fantastically well. I'd love to see it myself. I think it'd be a great idea. To be an awesome initiative by the NRL. I think it would elevate the NRL to new levels. It'd show a vested interest from more people. It makes it more exciting, and it also gives these juniors, and clubs both a chance to, potentially play. They got the father son rule in the AFL, where if you're the son of a player, that you got the opportunity to go to that club first and foremost over a draft pick. Yeah, I think it'd be amazing. So let's see what Volandis and Abdo do over the coming years. Let's see if they implement something there. Uh, the Panthers. Now, from Lachlan McQuilwain, are they making any more moves in the off season? Now, me being a Penrith fan myself, I think they have room, but I believe they're going to use it on some of their existing talent to try and keep them at the club. Do you hear any whispers out in the West?
Well, what I'm hearing is that, and this has happened to other clubs. You keep winning comps, your young players' value goes up, and they're all in demand. So, as you say, they're going to have to spend the cash to upgrade the good players they've got. So, all of a sudden, this cap space disappears, and it's one of the pitfalls of winning comps. But you want to win comps, you got to pay the price.
Yeah, that's it. And I guess that's the beauty of the salary cap, isn't it? Speaking of someone who's not very level-headed, the John Bateman saga continues to rear its head. Now, is he off to South? Because that's the other club I can see Brandon Smith at as well.
Yeah, well, apparently him and Wayne Bennett know each other. I think Wayne just seems to know about everyone in the game, and I've said in print and to you, I thought Bateman was okay last year with the Tigers. So if I were South and Wayne Bennett, and bearing in mind the Tigers are quite happy to pay a fair chunk of his wage, yeah, I'd snap him up for sure.
Yeah. Now, a left field one, Moley. How does a bloke with 30 years of NRL journalism experience have his steak cooked, and what sauce?
Oh dear, who's asking that?
That is from Jason Phillip.
I like my steaks well done. I've got a barbecue out back, and I absolutely slaughter them. No sauce. Sauce is where you get all the
Well done, no sauce.
sauce is
Wow.
where you get all your fats and your sugars. So I'm a strict avoider of sauces. That's why I can
Man,
still stagger around the touch footy field at age 65.
far out. Maybe that's not why I'm playing touch footy. I'm a medium rare barbecue sauce guy myself. Coming out of the Dragons. Now, we did report this earlier on some of the, I think it was the first episode that we ever did, Moley. Atkinson actually has signed for St. George. Now, it's for 2026, of course, but that's a huge coup for the Dragons. Now, what does that mean, though, for the Dragons' halves situation?
Yeah, it'll be interesting, won't it? Kyle Flanagan will be looking over his shoulder.
Yep.
Lachlan Ilias has only just signed,
Mm.
so
Well, Flanagan's come straight out and said that Atkinson's going to partner Lachlan Ilias. So, what does that mean for his son? Or is this coaching rumor maybe a sign?
yeah, well, I guess he'll play his son in first grade. He's not going to drop him. They're too
Mm.
tight. I know that. So maybe we're looking at a move of Kyle Flanagan, the hooker. Who knows? I think he's
Yeah,
played a
well,
bit there before.
yeah, well, I doubt it because now they've got Damien Cook, they got Jacob Little. Yeah, I mean, maybe this year I would say is in the halves, but for 2026, who knows? Maybe Kyle and Shane will be at another club. Let's see. Let's see what happens. Now, Jerome Luai, very interesting contract situation. He's actually got a player option for the last 3 years of his 5-year contract. What do you think's going to happen there? Because that is bizarre.
Yeah, it is. It's very strange, but at the same time, when I heard it, I thought, yeah, it kind of makes sense too, because 5 years is a massive commitment. And I'm trying to think, when was the last time a player signed a 5-year deal and actually stayed 5 years?
True.
These
Very true.
5-year contracts are almost a curse. They normally end up wanting out after 2 or 3, or going to England, or the club wants them out. So
Mm.
it's very smart by Luai's management, because things might fall apart at the Tigers after 2 years, and then Luai wants out. So now he's got that get out clause. Good for him, not so good for the Tigers.
Yeah, let's hope he stays his course. He's definitely a loyal personality and a man. So we'll see what happens over the coming seasons and wish him all the very best at the Tigers. Now, question from David Nicholson. Do you think Adam Fanua-Blake will have as much of an impact at the Sharks as he did at the Warriors?
Yes, good question. Well, you look at last season, he was absolutely superb the first half of the season. Then I thought he sort of seemed to lose focus, lose his way a bit after he signed with the Sharks. So it's anyone's guess. Hopefully, the Sharks get version 1 and not version 2, because he was a little bit lethargic in the second half of the season. He had some good games, but certainly not as good as the first half of the season, when he was probably the premier
Yeah.
prop in the game. He was scoring tries. He
Do you
was
think he
setting
checked
up
out
tries.
because the Warriors maybe weren't going to make the 8 and he was going to a new club?
Yeah, I think he just lost motivation. He knew he was going somewhere else. It's human nature. If I signed with Channel 7 next week, I probably wouldn't be giving my all to Channel 9. It's
Yeah,
it's
true.
it's just the way things are in the business world, and rugby league's a business now, as we know.
Yeah. Now, with Ryan Pappenhausen signing for Melbourne Storm for another year, CR Logo is, we thought, looking for another club, but it seems like not many clubs are interested.
Yeah, I'm hearing that, which is a good thing for Melbourne, I guess.
Mm,
Yeah, there hasn't been as much interest. I think the word is out there that he's a little bit high maintenance, shall we say,
mm,
and so a couple of clubs have dropped off him. I know the Dogs were thinking about having a chat and decided not to. They're one of the big spenders who've got money up their
yeah.
sleeves. So I think Falogo long term will stay right where he's at the Storm, and it's probably the best fit for him.
Yep, yep, yep. Now, a couple of other questions. They kind of tie, no, not really tie into each other, but we'll go to Lee Marshall's question. With Regan Campbell Gillard going to the Titans, will that help them push into the top 8?
Yeah, well, I thought he was a real shining light in a very disappointing Parramatta side last year, and I was surprised when Jason Riles told him he could go. If I was him, I would have told Paulo, his fellow prop, to look around. I thought Campbell Gillard played him off the park. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think he's a good signing. He adds experience to that Titans pack, and the Titans aren't far off a finals team. You know, they've got more pace than any other backline in the game, I think. They got young Campbell, who's a champion, Brimson, I rate.
Yeah, you got
Uh,
Tino coming back from injury.
yeah, exactly. They barely saw Tino this year, so he's great. And of course, the big enigma David Fafita, if they can get the best out of him,
Mm.
they're a real danger team with plenty of strike power. So definitely a good side, capable of going places.
Yeah, now David Nicholson had a follow-up question for after the Adam Fanua-Blake question. Will Tanner Boyd slot straight into the 7 jumper at the Warriors? Now, this is a really interesting one because let me read out the halves that they have now. Obviously, Sean Johnson's retired, but now they have Tanner Boyd, they've got Chanel Harris Tafida, they've got Tamare Martin, they've got Luke Metcalf, and now they've got Tanner Boyd. So, where does he fit in?
Yeah, well, look, I watched every Warriors game last year, and I thought all their best wins were with Tamari Martin at halfback.
Mm.
He's a class act. He really filled Sean Johnson's boots very well when Johnson was out with that long injury. And when Johnson came back is when they started losing games. So I think it's almost a given that Tamari Martin's going to start the year and a half, and Boyd's going to have to work his way into that team.
Yeah, well, I hope you're right, Molly. Something tells me that we might see a situation where Chanel Harris Tavita and Tamare Martin both don't make the side, and they start with Tanner Boyd and Luke Metcalf in the halves. But let's watch this space. That's a very good question. I don't know where that one's gonna end up. Now, before we wrap up, obviously we broke the news that Laurie Daly is going to be the new New South Wales coach. Now, Bellamy is actually going to be sitting in the box as his right hand man. How much influence do you think Bellamy's going to have on this new New South Wales Blues team?
Yeah, look, I think it's a masterstroke. Laurie Daly's been there before and didn't come up with the results, but having Craig Bellamy as his mentor, that puts a whole new slant on things. To me, Bellamy's the best coach in the game, and he doesn't do things by halves. I think you'll find he'll be in there calling the shots, and they'll virtually be co-coaches. Yeah, there's no
Mm.
way he'll just be in the background. So I think with him there, the Blues are definitely a big chance of going back to back.
Very solid coaching box, and hopefully they can replicate it on the field for all the Blues fans out there, not for myself, Queenslander through and through. Now, Terrell May, very, very interesting word has come to light here in a recent interview that he had on a podcast he was doing in the last couple of days. Apparently, the timing of the conversation with Trent Robinson about leaving the club, he believes was a strategy so that he didn't go to a current top club. What do you make of this situation?
Yeah, well, it shows it was a pretty bad divorce, wasn't it?
Mm,
Quite a few of
yeah,
these players leaving clubs. It's all very amicable, and we wish you all the best, and good luck, and all this. Well, Terrell May's
yeah,
having none of it. He's obviously upset. I was quite shocked when the Roosters did let him go because I thought he was the best impact player off the bench in the NRL. I thought he did a great job for him. The
yeah,
Roosters say he doesn't fit their culture. Little bit strange, I got to say. If a guy wins games, the NRL tend to sign him clubs, even if he's an axe murderer. So
yeah.
it's definitely a strange one, and it's obviously stung. And yeah, it'll be very interesting when the Roosters play the Tigers. Let's just put it that way. We might have to mark that one down in the calendar.
Oh yeah, and look, credit where credit's due, and for all the listeners out there who are unaware of the situation, he's sort of claiming that when those higher clubs, as in the Storm and also the Panthers, were looking for some extra forwards to add to the fray, he was fully in Roosters' plans. Even re-signed a long-term deal at the club. Thought his future was safe. Obviously, Stefano signs for the Storm, and the Panthers invest in Isaiah Papali'i, and all of a sudden Trent Robinson goes, "We don't need you anymore. You're surplus to requirements," and he can no longer go to these top profile clubs, which says to me that maybe Terrell May would have ended up at the Storm or the Panthers if he was given the opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, we'll never know, but for sure they would have had a dig at him. I'm pretty sure he's a Panthers junior, isn't he? So
Mm. Yep.
could have been a big fit there. Him and his brothers have all played there at some stage of their careers, and they were on the lookout for big forwards. So yeah, I can understand him being dissatisfied. Well, the only thing I think the Roosters paid a fair bit of his way again, so he wasn't out of pocket financially. With the
Yeah.
Tigers usually having to pay over to get players, he might have even got a pay rise. So
Yeah.
I guess that's the one positive for him to come out of it.
Look, I think it's a win-win. I think he'll be absolutely immense for the Tigers. He might even get their player of the season, to be fair. He's going to play extended minutes. He's probably going to get 60 minutes a game. For all the Supercoach and fantasy players out there, I'd be putting him in my team straight away. He'd be my first pick player. He could be as good as Payne Haas. That's as high a ceiling as I reckon he's got,
Yeah,
in
it's a
my
good
opinion.
call, and there's plenty of super coach players watching us, and he'd probably come at a relatively bargain price, I would think, having been a bench player most of last season. So yeah, jump on in. Is super coach open already, Diz?
Oh, it's gonna open the team pickers out, I believe, next week. So get excited, everyone. It's coming soon. You can do your 948 team selections before the season starts and change it 6,000 times like I do. All right. Now, final question to wrap up, Molly, from Ryan on X. What on earth are the Cowboys doing? Now, the reason I left this to last is I'm kind of thinking the same way. I'm a little bit confused with their transfers. I don't know whether they had salary cap pressure. They obviously did, but geez, I'm just going to read out their losses for from the year just gone. So they've lost Kyle Felt, they've lost Valentine Holmes, they've lost Chad Townsend, and now they've lost Reese Wobson. They've signed Carl Launton, Kai O'Donnell, and Jackson Paulo. What is doing there?
Yeah, it doesn't quite add up, does it? But I mean, of the four they lost, Chad's getting near the end of
Yep.
his career. Kyle Felt, I think, realised he was getting near the end, even though he kept scoring tries.
Yeah.
Robson obviously took him by shock. That was one they wanted to keep.
Yep.
But
And
yeah,
Val Holmes, their goal kicker.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. But on the pluses, yeah, the three they've signed don't exactly excite me, and they probably don't excite the Supercoach pundits either. So,
No,
yeah,
well, I
but
mean, Fini
they
Fuiaki, he sort of was the backup second rower at the club. Then they've got Helam Lukey and they've got Jeremiah Nanai. But outside that, I'm not really sure their second row. Like they got three halfbacks, Duffy. They've got obviously Jake Clifford, and Jackson Purdue is a three-way shootout, according to Todd Payton. Which way do you think he's going to go?
Yeah, I think he'll start with Clifford. He's the most experienced of the three. He put a couple of good games together towards the end of last season, and he's got a good kicking game, and
Mm,
knows the players, knows the system. This is his second stint up there, so it makes sense to go with him certainly in the trials. But the other two guys will certainly get their chance in the trials. But
yep.
look, the Cowboys are blessed with a massive junior league as well, and
Mm,
they've pulled a lot of these guys out of nowhere. I mean, a few years ago we hadn't have heard of Nanai and plenty of their
of
other
course.
players.
Yeah.
So they've got a good pathway system. I don't think it's any reason to panic, but you certainly look at it and you think, gee, they're
Well, they
going to
need a
struggle
hooker. I
to
know that much.
yeah, exactly. Well, maybe Brandon Smith's the fit up there, although he has come out
Yeah.
and said he doesn't want to play there. But if the money's right, who knows?
Who knows? Who knows? Well, thanks again, Molly, for another great episode of the Secret Tining Tunnel. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you all again next week for the last episode before Christmas.
Disclaimer: any views or opinions represented in this podcast and or Facebook and social media pages are personal and belong solely to the podcast owners and do not represent those of people, institutions or organizations that the owners may or may not be associated with in a professional or personal capacity. Unless explicitly stated, Any views or opinions are not intended to malign any religion, ethnic group, organization, club, company, or individual. All content provided on this podcast is for informational purposes only. The owners of this podcast make no representation as to the accuracy or completeness of any information on this site or found by following any link on this website. Owners will not be liable for any errors or omissions in this information, nor for the availability of this information. The owners will not be liable for any losses, injuries, or damages from the display or use of this information.